The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
What's happening, friends? Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, a Hoop Ball presentation. I am Dan Bespris, and I am thrilled to be back after a couple of weeks. Vince was able to do the heavy lifting for the better part of half a month while I've been indisposed, completely cornered and run ragged by the minor league baseball season. And to celebrate episode number 50 of Fantasy NBA Today, I have not one but two very special guests on the program. I'm going to start with Vince because I got to thank you for picking up the pieces here. I've been trying to deal with the fact there's been a lot going on actually for minor league baseball in Bakersfield, and I'll probably make mention of that at some point on the show. But Vince, I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. What's going on?
Not much. I found out I'm having a baby boy. I got my very first tattoo, and I missed you.
Those are three things of wildly descending order of importance. And then certainly for the half-century mark here, the JFK piece on Fantasy NBA Today, the founder, the man, the myth, the pedigree, the legend. I got a few more, but I'll save them for a later date. Aaron Brewski, what's going on? I haven't talked to you in months. Well, at least not on the podcast.
It's great to talk with you. I was going to be a tad bit upset that you went to Vince first without going to me, but after that great lead-in, I guess I'm okay with it. Then my earphones cut out. Did you say you indecently exposed yourself, and that's why you couldn't come on the podcast?
A couple of those words may have gotten switched in order. I mean, I don't know that I would call it indecent. I thought that it was.
You said somebody ran across the field.
Oh,
was it
yeah.
Naked?
So, for those that are not avid followers of the minor league baseball landscape, I will take just a moment here to kind of fill in what's been going on for me the last couple of weeks. And that is that minor league baseball has brought the hammer down, and they are closing minor league ball in Bakersfield against the wishes of the franchise and against the wishes certainly of the community. And two new franchises, Bakersfield and Adelanto, California, are both closing down, will likely open up in Kinston and Fayetteville, North Carolina. So my plan, which was already to spend a great deal more time with all of you fine folks, has been accelerated slightly by the fact that at the end of a potential, we hope, playoff run for Bakersfield, that will be the end of the line for minor league ball in Bakersfield, California. 75 years they've played at this stadium, and it's coming to a close. And what Aaron's referring to is that, and I've been in Bakersfield for 6 seasons of minor league ball, on the very last regular season home game, which happened on Sunday, we did have our first fan running the field. And I don't know, unfortunately, and I can't believe I'm using the word unfortunately for this, unfortunately the fan was fully clothed. A streaker would have really sort of cemented that moment in history. But AB, no, I have not taken it upon myself yet. I'm assuming after our last game ever at Sam Lynn, all sorts of weird things will happen, and then I'll come on the podcast from cell 11B. But for now, all is well. My voice is coming back after a long week of telling stories and media appearances and baseball games, and I'm thrilled to be chatting with you two gentlemen again. So let's dive into it. This show's not going to be really about what's going on in the NBA. The stories they're happening, but they're sort of light in gravitas. But I wanted to take episode 50 to really kind of give you, Aaron, a platform here to let everybody know how things are going at Hoop Ball and ask some questions kind of on the growth of the website and where you are personally and where the site is and where you want it to be. So, it's been about half a year now, roughly, somewhere in that neck of the woods, and Hoop Ball's been growing steadily. And so how do you feel, Aaron? How do you feel like things are going for the website over this stretch?
It's kind of crazy. I'm listening to Vince talk about he's gonna have a baby boy. He just got a tattoo. Those are really big things in somebody's life. The 75 years of baseball in Bakersfield. I covered the Kings relocation story for 4 or 5 years for Pro Basketball Talk over at NBC, and that's a huge story for a town. So I kind of feel a little silly talking about this in the light that it's been this really big deal in my life. The site itself has just grown tremendously. Our team has grown tremendously. You guys have been putting out this podcast twice a week, and it's just great from a fantasy perspective. The value that it brings to the listeners, the enjoyment factor. I listen to it all the time, and I'm basically looking to make sure you guys don't screw up. So I'll just put that out there.
That's fair.
And I'm always listening. Remember that. I'm always listening. No, I'm happy with everything. It's been just this phenomenal experience. The site is poised to grow even more. And I kind of just sit back, and when you guys said, oh, hey, by the way, it's 50, I was like, man, that's actually a huge milestone. And to be kind of where we're at, we just launched a draft guide. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit, because that's really, to me, if we're talking fantasy hoops right now, we're at a really important time for fantasy owners. This is the last couple of weeks where you get to really gear up for this upcoming season. When the news starts cranking in, it gets busy, and you have to be very good at what you do to make the adjustments as the news comes in, and to make the right adjustments to your projections and your draft strategy and everything having to do with drafting. So this is a calm before the storm. And sitting here in our position as we get ready for all of this, just some of the plans that we have on the radar, not just with the pods, but with video, with the fantasy division, with the non-fantasy division, with the DFS division, and the talent of the guys that we have underneath one roof. I mean, I believe we were the gold standard over at Roto World. The guys over there are super talented. Ryan Naus, Dr. A, Ethan Noroff. These are guys that are the best in the business at what they do. And I like our team against them. And I don't have a problem saying it. I'm still friends with those guys. And I'll rib them. I'll say, hey, I like our chances against these guys. And it's because we have 10, 15 deep, really, really solid fantasy minds. And it's a volume thing. And so I'm really excited with the product that we're going to put out, not just in the fantasy draft guides, but just day-to-day on the website, in the free sections, and really just leveraging technology in a way to where fantasy owners can get their questions answered. They can get high-level analysis of what's going on. They can get it for free. If they want a little bit more, they can get it for a premium content. And just the sky's the limit. So I'm just really happy. I'm thankful for you guys in particular, because you guys have taken a leadership role with the organization, and that has made my life tremendously easier, because as you guys know, I don't sleep, and from what we hear, sleep is important.
Yeah, they say that. So if you had to estimate, Aaron, over the last 7 days, how many hours of sleep do you think you've had?
7.
That's a safe bet, I suppose.
It's about 7.
Let's talk a little bit more about the draft guide, actually, since that is kind of what's happening now. And to take a line from Spaceballs, what's happening now is happening now. What does that entail? How can fans kind of get their hands on that? What's included in the draft guide? How important do you feel it is? How long is it available? And how long is it an important piece of somebody's fantasy arsenal?
It's going to be important all the way up until draft night and really the final weekend. Most leagues will probably draft, and I prefer to draft the weekend right before opening night. So that's where you get all the last second information, and teams make their final roster changes or rotation changes. Or there's always one thing that happens before the season starts or right as the season starts. I remember the James Harden trade comes to mind for some reason. There's always something that goes on. So that last weekend, it's good right up until the final minute, really. And we'll actually probably sell it for a couple days after the start of the season, because there's some leagues that actually draft on that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after the league has started, and they just omit that first week. So, but for right now, the draft guide, it's really critical to get a baseline understanding of what player values are. Because right now, other sites, we call them the big box sites, your ESPNs, your CBSs, your Roto Worlds, they're putting out their rankings, and they have such a far reach. So if you come in and your rankings have differences, you can actually get a lot of mileage out of that because, and pardon my rude computer noise, you could come in if you think a guy's ranked at, say, 40 and everybody else has him at 60 or 80 or 100. That's something that having that understanding right now before the season starts, before training camps start, and you start seeing these news stories that come out every single year. This person's going to have a big year. This person gained 15 pounds of muscle. This person lost 15 pounds of fat. Somebody goes for 20-10 in a preseason game against nobodies. There's a lot of noise that complicates your life, or your analysis, I should say. And having that understanding now, getting in there, when we made this draft guide, I've completed the Brewski 150. I haven't made final adjustments, but that really is the backbone of this draft guide. We have built our analysis around that. Guys, when they've had, when they did analysis, we all worked on the same stuff together. We did player profiles. We put them in some sort of kind of a ranking-like order. We kind of did take a consensus approach, but at the end of the day, the Brewski 150 has been something that's been successful in the past, and all the feedback we've gotten is owners, just generally speaking, they win using it. We did an analysis compared to the Roto World rankings, which I did not do last year. We beat the Roto World rankings pretty significantly. It's kind of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So the backbone being the Brewski 150, we've come in, we've done player rankings, we've done player profiles, and we've really set the table with more analysis than I've seen us do in the past over at Roto World. So I'm happy that the draft guide it's not even close to complete, but what we've got out there right now is a significant amount of content for owners to look through.
So, no, I was going to jump in and just say, Aaron, who else worked with you on the draft guide over at Hoopball?
Oh, wow. A lot of the guys that you guys have been having on the podcast, we've had both Donani brothers, Zane and Riaz, that have worked on it. John Schifferly worked on it. Jake Cousins worked on it. Dan with an H, Dan Wynn out of Toronto, he's worked on it. John Sill has worked on it. Mike Pandador has worked on it. And if I forgot anybody, they're going to have the ability to talk trash to me forever.
Yeah, tweet at us. At Hoopball Tweets. At Aaron Brewski, at Dan Bespris, Vince Miracle. You can get us all. You know where to find us. Sorry, go ahead.
Vince has helped out with it. Everybody's really put in a lot of work on this thing. And some of this stuff is like stuff that I have not had access to and I'm going to be using this year. Like, for instance, Mike Pandador created a schedule analysis tool that's really, I can't believe that we hadn't done this in the past. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to start Hoopball, so we could bring more innovation to the table for fantasy owners. And it's just something as simple as allocating or identifying who has the most playoff games based on when your playoff weeks are, and how many games does a team have in the beginning of the year versus the end of the year, and highlighting it in a way that's easy to see. Our depth charts, they're interactive. Our tier reports are rock solid. John Sill did a great job. I mean, you could literally just use the tier reports article of this guide, go into your draft, just like I did in my fantasy football draft the other day. I took Evan Silva, Roto Worlds. I took his rankings in there, and I'm going to clean up because they're just better rankings. I mean, I was getting top 20 players in the 5th round because they're better rankings. You could take this tier report that John Sill did and dominate your league with just one report. We will be adding the Brewski 150 projections as well as the Brewski 150, the actual ranking list. We'll be adding that. I believe it's October 10th. Don't quote me on that. So owners will get, or purchasers of the draft guide who are getting it at a discount right now at $9.99 for a limited time. That's probably going to be up for about another week or so. They're getting early access to the Brewski 150, which has produced all sorts of winners, just massive wins, and a couple high-profile losses. I don't want to oversell it. I'll miss on about 2 or 3 guys that you guys are going to laugh at me terribly for. There's one every year. Myers Leonard last year. Pat Beverly 1 year. Who else?
Well,
Who was your
everybody.
biggest win? Who was your biggest
Kyle
win last year?
Kyle O'Quinn. My wins, I had Isaiah Thomas on the spot. I think I had him at 23. Everybody else had him at 50 or 60. That was a no-brainer for me. Robert Covington was a win. Gorgie Jeng was a massive win. Kind of up and down the roster. There's actually an article I put out the other day that identified all of the wins. Otto Porter was a huge win. There's going to be about 15 guys in that list that no other site will have. If they do, they'll be hedging. They'll have them maybe 10 or 20 slots above their average draft position. And I'm going to tell you exactly where they're going to finish. And you can use that as an auction guide, which we will have one of those in the draft guide as well. You can use that as well, how much do I really want to reach for this guy? How much do I want to reach for Nikola Jokic? That's the kind of question that you want to answer, because you want to know where these guys stand. You don't want somebody who's going to take safe picks. Put your money where your mouth is, and that's what I do. And actually, a guy named Eric Wong challenged me a long time ago. So Eric, if you're listening, what's up, man? He said, "Dude, none of you guys put your money where your mouth is." And I'm like, "Well, okay, let's play." And so what we do is we play high-stakes fantasy basketball. We put a lot of money down on the table, and this list is what I take into those drafts. And I've won first place 2 out of 5 years, and I've placed in the money just about every year I've done this. And these are the best fantasy basketball drafters and players in the United States or the world. So the list itself, it's professional grade.
It sounds like one of the advantages, and we're talking about, of course, the draft guide at hoop-ball.com. One of the advantages that you're able to parlay into all of this content is that there's more collaboration going on, where you're able to provide arguably the most important part of it in the skeleton, but then there are so many bodies, like you said, 10 to 15 deep, that can kind of fill in pieces around it. Where and believe me, now I'm working here for Hoop Ball, but like most folks that are listening to this podcast and that have discovered Hoop Ball, they've looked at the other websites. We've all been there. You worked at Roto World, Aaron, and I've certainly used that website a great deal. And each individual person over there has kind of their own special take on things, and you try your best at times to piece them together and see which one fits the best. But what you've done is you've now aggregated it and put it into one large device that combines everybody's knowledge and is able to build, like you said, that's sometimes a consensus, but based on your skeleton, and then folks are able to kind of weigh in on it. Is that it? It sounds like, at least to me, in listening to you talk so far, that's one of the big edges that you have right now.
Well, it's awesome because, first of all, there's so much talent out there on the internet. I mean, there's like an infinite amount of talent when it comes to assessing basketball. And what we see is that the kind of the media landscape, it doesn't necessarily give a voice to all of that talent. That's more of like an internet monetization issue than anything else. And so when we started Hoop Ball, the idea was to give a voice to all this talent. And now I was listening to Riaz on the podcast the other day, and I forget who he was breaking down. I'm drawing a blank here because it was late. It was like 4 a.m. when I was listening to this. But I was sitting there, I hadn't thought of the angle he'd presented. And that's what you're looking for with this stuff, is when you're rolling 10 deep, and we're growing, by the way, we'll probably add another 10 writers at least here before the beginning of the season. You get different angles, you get different insights. And the one thing that I can do with the probably 10 years of experience that I've got in this industry is I can help train guys on what's worked for me in the past, what I'm seeing in these high stakes leagues. The stuff I go against is like kind of statistical algorithm stuff. And it's intense. It's the best of the best. I mean, they're using field goal punt strategies. They're using the free throw punt strategy in roto leagues of all places. They're trying to take any approach that they can to winning. So I'm able to take what I see out there kind of on the front lines of the bigger money games and bring it back and train guys who already have an acumen for basketball. And we're just building off of it. And everybody's learning from each other. It's a real good environment. It's a big team environment. We have a great locker room. we've got the chemistry. So that is probably the most important thing, I think, in delivering high quality content in the way that we're setting forth to do.
Vince, you had the Donani brothers on over the last couple of weeks. What were you able to take away from some of those episodes yourself? Not so much about the basketball side, but about the talent that Hoopball's bringing to the table.
We got young, smart guys, people that love watching basketball. And you can tell by the way that the Donani brothers talk. I mean, the way that they look at the game may not be the same way that I look at the game or even that Aaron looks at the game. They look at it more from the numbers standpoint and how the player plays on the floor and what the data says. And that's just an interesting way to look at it, especially when you're looking at it from the fantasy side and the way that they're putting those numbers together and putting it into this draft guide. Like, I know a lot of people that have already purchased this draft guide and has been reaching out, and I think Aaron can attest to this too, about how much this draft guide is already helping them and how much they feel that this is one of the best draft guides that they've seen, and that they feel like they're getting it for a steal right now at that $9.99 price, which you guys should definitely go get while the promo is going on for, you said, another week or so, Aaron?
Yeah, about another week or so. And we'll have some opportunities to get, say, like 50% off. We're going to be doing some flash pods and flash live video hits, I believe is what I heard come through the pipeline the other day. It's kind of shocking. I sit here every day and I think, oh, my God, there's this new thing going on. Oh, wow, that's awesome. And so folks will be able to get it at 50% off at some point in time. But, yeah, the price is going to continue to go up until the last week. So you got to get it now. $9.99. Will never be more expensive than other guides out there like Roto World and such. But $9.99 is just a steal for what you guys are getting. It's going to beat everybody else hands down.
So kind of turning towards what's to come. We've talked now about where we've come from and what you've been able to build just on the talent side in terms of the depth of knowledge of different parts of basketball. And that, to me, is where I want to take this podcast next, and that is all the different styles of NBA fantasy play. And it seems like, Aaron, you're building a stable of minds where there's expertise in every one of those avenues. And Vince, certainly, he and I got into DFS quite a bit when we joined forces on this podcast. And Aaron, you and I talked about full season basketball when we were working on this podcast earlier on. And moving forward, for the draft guide, for the audio from Hoopball, it sounds like there are plans to really try to hit in every corner, regardless, really, of what type of fantasy basketball somebody's interested in. It sounds like you have a plan to address that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, DFS is a monster no matter what's going on in the industry with the various laws and kind of the fighting at the top between the companies that are involved. The game itself is healthy, in my opinion. I think that people love playing it. I know I love playing it. I just don't love the fact that I'm not an expert at it. I mean, I could tell you who's good and who's not, but there's a way to play that game. And yeah, we're going to be jumping into that head first and trying to become industry leaders in the type of DFS analysis that owners want. I was talking with John Schifferle the other day. I mean, he's sitting there. I'm getting like a college level education in analytics and, statistical analysis, because that's the kind of stuff that DFS owners are looking at to get an edge. And if that's the way the game is going to be played, then you want somebody that's working on your behalf to simplify and maybe give their take on, okay, this is what the numbers say. Say you pick with your gut. That's kind of how I pick. And I feel like I'm more successful with my gut. What ends up happening is I double my money 10 times in a row, and then I'm like, I'll just do it again. and then I lose it all. So that's more of a betting strategy issue than anything else. I should just take the money, pocket it, and then
we can have
call it a day.
We can have a DFS episode on discipline. That's for another day, though.
Yeah, I'm not very disciplined because I'm just like, you know what? I just want to see how many times I can win in a row.
Let it ride, baby. Let it ride.
Yeah. But that's the thing is, like, I'm not taking it seriously. But the way John Schifferle looks at it with a numbers perspective is there are very clear-cut ways to look at this numerically speaking. The algorithms that are involved with the way DFS players play are similar to the way stocks are traded, similar to the way that other mathematically based fields are dealing with kind of these types of problems. And so you want the best minds in the business. And we always say that, right? We're looking for the best basketball minds. We want people that understand numbers. We want people that understand basketball. We want people that do it with their gut. We want people that look at it just purely from a numbers perspective. So you as the owner can get out there and make a choice based on what you like. And you talked about that earlier, is reading all the different websites as you figure out who you trust, who you're going to hitch your wagon to. For me, in football, it's Evan Silva, Adam Levitan, Chris Wessling, Pat Doherty, and probably forgetting somebody, Greg Rosenthal, I think. Those are the guys that, when I had big money on the line, when I won a national competition, I was walking in, I'm like, I'm like, Greg, who do I take? And he's like, take Larry Fitzgerald. I'm like, yes, winner. And that's what you're trying to do in any fantasy sport. If you're trying to win, if you're trying to have fun with your friends, you want to be the one that can talk trash at the end of the year, you figure out who you can hitch your wagon to. If you're a numbers guy, you might say, hey, John Schifferle, I'm going to hitch my wagon to your picks, and I'm going to go for it.
And it's so apt, actually. I didn't have a reasonable follow-up question for that particular angle, because that is how it operates for most of us that are. There's the casual fantasy basketball player who doesn't even bother to read any additional information, and they're probably going to lose most of the time. There's the intermediate fantasy basketball player, which is, I think, where we get involved a little bit more, where we're able to kind of help someone get over that hump, and they do find someone that they can trust. And to me, having all of these voices, having a podcast where the subscribers at Hoopball can kind of get to know the people that they're reading and the people that they are trying to trust is a big part of the puzzle as well. So you've created this community now, and the effort from here going forward is to build it. So that's my next question, Aaron. What's the future hold? What's on tap for Hoopball? How do you continue to grow the website in a way that continues to strengthen that bond between pro and subscriber/reader, while at the same time creating a bigger monster? How do you do both of those things at the same time?
I think this industry, and when I say this industry, I'm not even limiting it to fantasy. I think the entire publishing industry is kind of at a crossroads and also at risk. The old brick and mortar, the pillars of the industry have been reducing their budgets, and a lot of what you see out there is driven by TV. And so what happens is a 3 or 4 letter site, they've got a TV channel, and then they decide, in order to support the TV side of things, we need to have online content, we need to have fantasy sites, we need to have this, we need to have that, because when we go and negotiate with the NFL or the NBA, we need to be able to bring X, Y, Z to the table. And they're dealing with such big dollars, but the content side is not really the focus of those operations. And so what happens is they just kind of get treated like stepchildren. So budgets get cut, and now as people cut their cords and look for more personalized content, their budgets have gotten even smaller. And what it ends up doing is it really constrains the industry and what the industry can really do, because at the end of the day, everybody's got to pay the bills. And I think what we're trying to do here at Hoopball is approach this kind of like the way Mark Cuban would, from a venture capital perspective, from a business perspective, is there's almost an unlimited demand for NBA content. I mean, people go to work and they probably spend 8 hours on their computer looking at fantasy and not doing any work whatsoever.
Yeah. Productivity at its best.
Exactly. USA. That's the whole world, actually. So it's not even a USA thing.
Yeah, and it is.
It's this demand of content that people want. So how do you find a way to monetize that and make sure that the people that are providing the content are well fed and that they have a future, and they know that that they won't be under constant duress as you see newspaper writers constantly getting let go, and the entire industry kind of is just like always looking around like, well, what's happening next? When's the next downsizing? When's this? When's that? And what we want to do is flip the script on that. And that's what allows us to have a team that's so talented is they see what we've got going in the works. They see what the future is, and they want to be a part of it. Everybody wants to be a part of something that's got a good message, that's concerned about the end product, what the customer gets out of it, that they get to kind of artistically express themselves and build their footing in an industry that's really exciting. I mean, I've got a business background, and I have spent the last 10 years in sports, and it has been some of the most exciting stuff that I've ever done.
So it sounds to me like what you're actually saying is that making a bigger beast, that is a larger fantasy power, and maintaining that connection to the subscribers is actually not as hard as other sites and other models have made it seem. It's just that they're kind of doing it in reverse.
Yeah, there's no science to this at all. You give good customer service, you care about the end product, you try to innovate. All of these things are just no-brainers, but they can't happen in the broad sense with the way the industry is currently set up, because right now, the guys negotiating the TV packages, they don't care if the fantasy site is just a little bit better.
That's true. They're not worried if it's
not
if
on
it's
their
winning.
mind.
If it's winning, it's gravy, but it's not really priority number one.
And they also look at it in a way it's like, there's this innumerable demand to be a fantasy writer or to be an NBA writer or to be whatever. And they kind of go, well, we could have anybody do this. So, we don't necessarily care. We'll take kind of the lowest cost option and roll with that. And that's problematic if A, you're in the industry, or B, you're wanting the best possible content, because it's not the economics of it and the machinery are not set up to provide you with the best content and to put the people producing the content in the best position. Because face it, like every NBA media person that I know is probably sleeping the same amount that I am. And that's because they have to work like dogs to get to where they got. And it's a really, really rough business, but it really doesn't have to be that way, because there are people, like if you ask the average guy in the street, would you hand $25 over to somebody that's going to make your NBA experience really, really cool? And they're like, sure, whatever, $25. I spent that on, I had a real bad night at McDonald's and I ordered half the menu. So,
listen, if you're over the age of 25, you've had that night.
Somebody out there's done it. I mean, I probably come close. I probably hit $18 one night,
Oh, I mean, I hit 20. I hit 20 on a Thursday.
I got to tell you, that's tough, man. That's food doesn't cost very much at McDonald's.
Should we make that a challenge? Like, so can somebody eat $25 worth of McDonald's in a day?
I don't want it.
You send us video eating $25 worth of McDonald's, and also absolve us of any risk with some sort of a waiver.
We need a liability form on this.
We'll give you a draft guide for free.
Oh, well, you heard it. Is this official? Can we stamp that?
Yeah, it's official.
Oh, my God.
The promo code will be like heart attack or something.
Yeah, yeah. The promo code is infarction, and people can look that up. And because I want to make this a teaching experience. This is all a learning experience. All right, so if you can eat $25 of McDonald's, not die, you get the draft guide for free.
There's got to be a waiver involved. I could hear legal calling me right now.
Plus a waiver. But wait a minute. But at that point, they're spending. Okay, now this is going to start sounding like an infomercial. But wait, there's more. At that point, they're spending now 2.5 times as much just to eat McDonald's. That seems like kind of a dumb plan.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, just don't do that and just buy the guide, and you'll be much better off for it.
Spend the other $15 you were going to spend on your $25 at McDonald's on McDonald's. Get $15 of Mickey D's and the draft guide, hopefully not die, and then you don't have to make a video of your impending doom. That, to me, seems like a much more reasonable plan. Okay, but from a structure standpoint, Aaron, and then I know you got to get running, so I'll try to limit the number of questions here. From a structure standpoint, what are the pieces that Hoopball can add to become that juggernaut, to become the site that people trust as the one that puts basketball fantasy first. I mean, what specifically is the next couple of things you can do?
You know what? Our list of to-dos is actually it's in a good spot, to put it that way. The pieces of the puzzle that we have currently in place have almost like all they need are like the expansion packs. You got to go through this stuff step by step, and really cross your T's, dot your I's, and make sure you're doing everything the right way. But we actually have everything in place. You know, we're looking at video, we're looking at audio, we're looking at all of the different facets of content. Because face it, content is king, and if the content's not good, it doesn't matter. That's the way I look at that at the end of the day. But in each area of content, I think the one spot that we probably don't have that I'd like to see shored up in the future is reporting, actual, on the ground, legitimate reporting. You saw an article done by, I want to say Complex, but don't kill me if I got that wrong, guys. On Shams Charania, who now writes for The Vertical, and he was working with Real GM, and he was more or less like, I'll do this stuff. And they were like, okay. And so he started reporting like a professional and started building his contacts at an arena in Milwaukee where they didn't have as much attention. So he was able to get pretty good access. And my thoughts there are, if I personally had the time, and one of the things that I was able to do when I reported for the Kings relocation story is, if you just approach general business principles to this industry and approach it professionally, you can get pretty far pretty quickly. And so from a reporting standpoint, one of the things that I was able to do, just being a part of the NBC family, was write for Pro Basketball Talk. And I thought to myself, you know what? If I was a kid out there that wanted to get into the reporting game, or a young adult, or even an old adult, I guess, I would want to basically find a platform and then just start establishing myself. And that's something that we don't have on the radar right now that I would love to see get expanded. Because really, the new internet is going to be the way things are done. There will be some brick and mortar places that survive because they change over to the kind of the new internet ways. But that vacuum will be filled by young entrepreneurs that get it, that want to take the next step into basketball writing. And that's what we want to help facilitate, and I think we can.
The overarching theme from all of this, for hoop-ball.com, if the product is good, a lot of the other stuff will end up taking care of itself. Aaron Bruski, the founder of hoop-ball.com, thank you so much for jumping on Fantasy NBA today. Repeating myself is confusing. For episode 50, we've missed you on the program, and I'm hoping that as this show moves forward towards the next basketball season, we can make you a much more frequent guest, and maybe, just maybe, you can squeeze in a power nap.
I don't know about the power nap, but I'll make time for the show anytime.
Vince, you got left out in the lurch on this show, and my apologies for that. It's been an unbelievable pleasure working with you over the last 12 to 14 weeks, and I can't wait to do more with you, Vince, on DFS as we approach this upcoming season. What's your short-term plan here leading up to NBA tip-off, and what can we expect from the Miracle Man? And then we're signing this bad boy off.
Well, no, yeah, I've had so much fun joining this podcast and doing it with you, like basically throughout the entire playoffs and doing DFS, and I can't wait to start doing more shows and having all those shows kind of start getting unveiled. Aaron was bringing up the video side, and I think that what my job right now is for Hoop Ball is kind of behind the scenes and the things that we're putting together over there. And I know one of the big things that we're going for is being very interactive with the fans, because I think that's another thing that helps monetize everything, is that you want to be able to talk to these people that are giving you advice and not just being somebody like, oh, I'm reading someone behind a computer screen. Like, no, we have the visual contents of shows. We have the podcast answering these questions like we do on this show every week, and try and get with using hashtag Fantasy NBA Pod, get that in there for all your questions. But we're really trying to make this interactive for the fans, knowing that not only are you coming here for the great content that you guys are reading and the great content that you can get from the draft guide or anything throughout the entire season, but more so that you get to talk to us and we're willing to answer your questions. And I can attest to this already right off the fact that once this draft guide came out and we started doing this pod now, Dan, people are asking us questions already because their drafts are coming up. Like, these guys have Fantrax leagues, and they want to have these answers. And I can say that this hoopball team is very knowledgeable, and they're ready to answer those questions. So for me, what you're going to see in the short term is really behind the scenes and putting things together. But definitely, I'm very excited to see what this team is going to be like when tip-off comes on opening night for the NBA.
We're growing at an exponential clip. Tremendous things are happening. Vince, you and I, can we talk again in a couple of days on how we're getting ready for opening day?
Definitely. I'll be here on Thursday and every other week after that.
Perfecto. So we got a lot coming up. We got so many more things to discuss. For Aaron Brewski and Vince Miracle, I am Dan Bespers. This was episode 50 of Fantasy NBA Today. Thanks so much to everybody that's been tuning in from the outset. Thanks to everybody that's been tuning in more recently. And, of course, thanks to folks that just found this one for the very first time. We hope you'll join us again as this show and the website just continues to grow on into 2016-17 NBA season. Have a fantastic couple of days, everybody. We'll catch up with you on Thursday.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.